Okay, this is the Baltimore City Council Judiciary Committee. We are here today for Council Bill 19-0403, Fair Election Fund Establishment and Administration. We have already held one hearing on this bill, at which time we had public testimony. Today, the committee will not be taking public testimony. We will just be entertaining amendments that have been offered up by Councilman Burnett, who's the chief sponsor of the bill. Before we get started, I'm Councilman Eric Costello, 11th District Chairman of the committee, joined to my left by Councilwoman Mary Pat Clark, 14th District Vice Chair of the committee, Councilman Chris Burnett, 8th District, Councilwoman Shannon Sneed, 13th District, member of the committee.
Thank you.
Councilman Leon Pinkett, 7th District, member of the committee. To my right, Councilman Robert Stokes, 12th District, member of the committee. Councilman John Bullock, 9th District, member of the committee. Councilman Ed Reisinger, 10th District, member of the committee. We are also joined by Matt Stegman, representing Mayor Jack Young. We have Kimberly Rubens from Council President Brandon Scott's office. We have Matt Peters to my immediate right, who is staff to the committee. Colleagues, you should all have a package that is 4 pages, double-sided, with a cover letter from Councilman Burnett's office. If you flip to the second page, you will see what is the beginning of 10 amendments. Who's here from Elena from Law Department? My understanding is that you've worked through these amendments with Councilman Burnett.
Yes, the Law Department has worked through the amendments with Councilman and legislative reference, and we are fine with them.
Okay, so law's perfectly okay with these?
Yes.
And Tony, legislative reference is good with these? Okay, excellent. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump through each amendment, and I'm just going to ask Councilman Burnett to speak to, briefly as possible, what the amendment is. So if you want to start with amendment number 1, Councilman, and then colleagues, if anyone has a question on a specific amendment, just grab my attention and you'll be recognized, and we can discuss the amendment with the sponsor and the Department of Law. Councilman Burnett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. And I want to also thank Mr. Petro and Mr. DeFranco for working with us very closely on these to make sure we got it right, that the amendments both fit the charter and COMAR regulations as well. So the First Amendment speaks to the administration of the fund itself and the relationship between the commission, the Baltimore City Fair Election Fund Commission, which was established via the charter in 2018, and the role of the finance department and working basically in tandem before dispersing any of these dollars to candidates. And so that's actually what the first 2 speak to, is where the dollars are going and who's signing off essentially before the dollars go out, and with that relationship between the commission and the finance director. Is that?
Correct.
Yep. Okay. So make sure I got it
Colleagues,
right.
any questions on the first 2?
So the third, for any printed materials, there's a piece of this legislation that speaks to the need for voter education and engagement by the commission, and this was a request by Councilmember Clark to make sure that the literature was in English and Spanish. Amendment number 4, so let me step back. So 4 speaks to both qualifying for the program itself. We want to make sure that candidates show some level of viability before being enrolled into this program or being allowed into the program. And after speaking to several colleagues, it was clear that the initial iteration of this bill had a lower qualifying threshold and matches for the comptroller, which is a citywide position. And so the feedback I received from those conversations was that the comptroller and council president, both being citywide positions, should have the same level of qualifying viability by candidates, as well as the same match if they are in the program. So it raises both the threshold to get in and what the matches are.
Any questions on Amendment 4, colleagues?
Cool. All right, number 5. Again, this speaks to the role that the State Board of Elections plays in working in tandem with the commission. And so these are very technical changes in the bill that basically decides who certifies candidates once they've qualified to get into the program. And the role that the director, the finance director and state board director play, I think the state board on this one play in allowing for funds to be distributed once the commission has approved of those transactions by the candidate themselves and reimbursements for the program. Cool.
Can you hang on one sec?
Sure.
Colleagues, any questions on Amendment 5? Councilman?
Cool. Essentially the same with 6 and 7. I'd say the same thing applies. And there's a pretty easy to understand in the packet on page 2. The email that went out explains this a little bit better than I did on that relationship. Are we good on those two?
Give me one sec.
Sure.
Okay. Anyone on 6 or 7, colleagues? Councilman?
So number 8 adds clarification to how the funds can be used. So we want to ensure that these funds, and this is a best practice for this type of program, aren't going to transfers to other candidates or other or entities or organizations. It outlines the other, again, pieces that are very important, that these tax dollars essentially are not being used for personal expenses, personal endorsements, late filing fees, et cetera. But we thought that was important to add a lot of clarity around that this can be used for the election itself and no other sort of ancillary purposes. That sometimes there's a little bit more flexibility with more, I guess, air quotes, traditional campaign funds.
Colleagues, any questions on Amendment 8? Councilman Stokes?
Where it says paying for late filing fees in Amendment number 8, isn't in the State Board of Elections, if I'm correct, if you already have money in the account and you have late fees, they automatically take it out?
So this would operate differently. Yeah. So yes, what you're saying is true. Yeah. So this would not allow you to do that for late fees.
So my question is, if the state saying that they can do it already for filing fees late, how is it now they saying it can be requested for this particular your bill that now you can't use it to pay late filing fees? Like, to me, it sounds like two different things. It already said if you have money in the account, if you got late fees, they take it out. This particular one says part of the participation for the candidate, you cannot pay for late filing fees.
We've also
Am I
been joined
correct?
by We've also been joined by Council President Brandon Scott. So, Elena, I think the question is, so the state requires that if you have if you have to pay a late filing fee, that it's automatically withdrawn from your account if you don't pay it. But we're saying here that the money in that account can't be used to pay a late filing fee. Are we,
I'm not familiar with that portion of the state election law. I can look into it. If the state is automatically taking it out, then it's not the candidate paying them directly, you know. But I'll check into that.
yeah, but I think it's the funds are coming
Right.
from
Right, I understand
the
that.
publicly financed account.
The problem. Let me see if I can look it up while we're sitting here and get some clarity
Okay.
on that.
Thank you. Councilman Stokes, are you good? Amendment number 9?
Same as above. It's, again, just adding anywhere you see consultation with and commission, it's basically saying that we need to align. So in the initial iteration of the bill, the commission was the listed entity as making a number of these decisions in a silo, essentially. What these amendments do is say the director of finance, in consultation with the commission, will work together on those approvals in the context of that part of the bill, essentially. That's where that's repeated several times throughout the bill.
Colleagues, any questions on Amendment 9? Councilman?
Same, 10, again. Yeah, I think that's, hold on. It's 22. I don't have my notes for that. Yeah, again, it's clarifying which sections it's referring to.
This is removing the DPW.
Oh,
bill?
right, yes. Sorry, I didn't have that in my notes. Yes, so we met with, my apologies about that. So section 3, there was, the state law allows for residents across state to contribute on their property tax bill to the state public financing model that we have, program that we have. We tried to do that essentially on water bills. We met with DPW and learned that was a bad idea to do, and also some legality issues around the fact that the water billing system is an enterprise that the funds can only be used for maintaining the system itself. And then there was also just issues around like reoccurring donations and how those things would work just with the billing system itself. If you want to, I see Marsha's here, if you want to speak to that, but we met with Marsha Collins in the mayor's office on this one and felt that it was something that was not only just not a good idea, but technically not possible.
Thank you, Councilman, Mr. Chairman, committee members. I appreciated the fact that the lead sponsor, Councilman Burnett, met with us and understood what we were expressing. We have very clear mandates about how we can spend enterprise monies, and this would place, to place this contributory system onto the water bill would obviously be an expense to the water billing system, and to collect that material and then try to figure out a way to have the finance department allocate that funding. We have a number of issues. One is when people make a partial payment, there is a formula that finance used to apply to all line items on that bill, so we would run into that problem. Plus a contributory box would be ongoing, so there may be some confusion about I want to donate once, but I don't want to donate every month. So we felt there were a lot of issues. So that, and I appreciate the councilman understanding that. I thank you that.
Colleagues, any questions about Amendment 10? Ms. Woods, ECB, do you have any concerns with any of the amendments?
No, I don't.
DPW, you're good? Thank you very much. Bob, do you have any concerns with the amendments themselves?
No, we're okay.
Thank you. Mr. Stegman? Administration have any issues with the amendments?
We just saw the final packet this morning, but if the law department and DPW are fine with them, we don't have concerns at this time.
Okay. And Elena, you're good with the amendments? Okay. Colleagues, is there a motion to move all 10 amendments as one package? Is there a second? Motion by Clark, second by Reisinger. Costello, yes. Clark?
Yes.
Bullock? Yes. Pinkett?
Yes.
Reisinger? Sorry, I'm doing alphabetical in my head. Sneed?
Yes.
Stokes?
Are we gonna check on this amendment number 8 about the late fees?
Elena, what's a reasonable time frame that you can get back to us on the amendment on the,
Well, I was hoping to get back to you before the end of this hearing, but my Wi-Fi in here seems to be not working too well. So I can run downstairs and then get back to you in like 15 minutes if that would be.
your vote,
I
Councilman?
mean, and Councilman, if there are issues that come up, I'll go on record saying that we can
Okay.
try and remove it at second reader.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Your vote, Councilman?
Yes.
Stokes is a yes. So the package of amendments passes, 7-0. Colleagues, my initial thought was that we would create an interlineated version of this and then post it on the website for a week and still get this to second reader on November 18th after hearing the explanation of the amendments. These seem mostly technical in nature. Is there anyone that would like to voice concerns with moving the bill favorably as amended today? Colleagues, is there a motion to move the bill favorably as amended?
So moved.
Motion by Clark. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Reisinger. Costello, yes. Clark?
Yes.
Bullock?
Yes.
Pinkett?
Yes.
Reisinger? Sneed?
Yes.
Stokes?
Yes.
This bill passes 7-0 as amended, moves to second reader on November 18th. We're now in recess.
Thank you.